Can I ask you the autograph?
Oh, sure.
With the quote, is there a chance?
Sure, yeah.
Because this is Now You See Me.
Yeah, of course.
Now you can see him person,
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the real pain. However, I have seen the Sons of Sasquatch.
Oh, really?
How was it playing with the costume?
Awful. It's like the most uncomfortable experience. I mean, I love the movie, but it's very hard
It
to...
was really fun and something bizarre.
Oh, yeah.
different.
Yeah, I just loved it so much. Yeah. Thank you for watching it.
Do you have some kind of the full signature? Maybe? Because this edition is super big. That's why maybe...
Oh, sure. You have like a big signature? Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, super. Amazing.
Thanks a lot.
Mongolia and then it became Poland. That's a sentence I've never heard before.
Yeah, what happened was, I took this trip, like the characters, I took the basic trip that the characters take in 2008, and we went to all of the same cities. But when I was writing this movie, it was originally about these two guys who go to Mongolia, and then it was not going well. And then on the internet, I saw an advertisement, and the advertisement said Auschwitz tours, and then in parentheses, with lunch. And I was like struggling to finish this Mongolia script, and then I saw an ad for Auschwitz tours with lunch, and I was just like, what the fuck is that? It's so weird.
Welcome to Poland.
Well, it's an American company that was doing. It's like it was an American thing. It was basically like it's for middle class American tourists who still want to feel like they're going to Rome, but they also want to see Auschwitz. And it's such a weird idea, this kind of like Holocaust tourism and this kind of tourism of tragedy. I've done it myself. I've been to Rwanda and Cambodia, and I'm interested in those events as well. And it's just weird because the way you experience it also requires that you eat lunch and stay in a hotel, and so it's odd. And so when I saw that ad, I threw out the Mongolia story and looked at all my pictures from 2008, from my first visit here to Poland, and realized that's the story.
We're very happy. Sorry for Mongolia though, next time.
Yeah. There's a film festival there with an empty audience now.
But it's a very good point actually, and this is what Benji expresses in the film, I guess, that the idea is just so strange that you would stay in those great hotels and go to restaurants, and then at the same time you feel like you should feel something. You should feel something authentic, real pain, real connection. When you did this trip, how was it? What did you feel?
Yeah, it was very strange. I remember feeling like there's nothing that I can do to make myself feel connected to this trauma, this tragedy. What am I supposed to do? Like pinch myself or cut my arm? I don't know. There's nothing I could do that would make you feel what people felt in Majdanek, in the concentration camp. And so it's odd because you want to have this reaction. You feel it's appropriate to have some big reaction. And I just didn't feel what I thought I might feel when I went to the house. So the scene at the house at the end in this small town is my family's house, from 1939. And I went to this apartment and I was like standing in front of it and just not having any kind of catharsis because it was just an apartment building and I didn't really belong there anymore. And so when I was writing these scenes, I wanted them to have that same feeling, that they go to this house and they're just kind of staring at it, and then they're told, actually, it'd be best if you took your rock because a woman can trip. And I just wanted to show kind of the irony of the way we try to connect to history and can't. And I also wanted to mirror the relationship between the two guys because they're trying to connect to their history of when they used to be really close. And they also can't connect to that. So you have this missed connection on the small level and on the big level.
And I think whenever we talk about stories about the Holocaust, we expect certain things and we're afraid of not repeating some things that maybe you don't like, or just because how do you show it again and be respectful, but at the same time it's another story and maybe you want to show different characters as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. As Poland knows more than anybody, there are like dozens of Holocaust-themed movies made every year. And to me, I watch a lot of them because I'm interested in this kind of thing. And there's a certain like kind of style that I don't really like, which is the style that feels like they're doing a good job by telling this story and they're making you as an audience feel like you're doing a good job by watching this story. And there's no sense of irony that it's a safe movie and you're in a theater. You know, there's just this feeling like we should all be congratulating each other for stepping into time and watching this horror, and I don't really like that. You know, it's been said that there's no real way to film the Holocaust. I mean, it's such a, horrible trauma that how can you film it? And so for me, the way I was thinking about doing this, if I was going to make a movie that's Holocaust themed, I thought, well, best to just make it about my reality, which is that I'm a third generation American Jew who's curious about it, but didn't experience it. And my curiosity is not all respectful, it's also confused. It's also like, I feel also like I don't deserve to feel any of the sadness because it didn't happen to me. So when I go there, am I allowed to cry? Well, maybe I shouldn't cry. Nothing happened to me. And so you have just this complicated set of feelings. And I was trying to show that in this movie where David, my character, feels like he says, I don't deserve to feel any pain because I take medication for my OCD. And I say, and Benji is like in pain, but he's constantly making everybody feel his pain. When he's angry or sad or something, everybody has to account for it. And so I was trying to kind of question what pain is valid, what pain is real.
But do you see it as a buddy movie at all? Because
Yeah.
it is one of those strange relationships when you just don't know who they are to each other and how do they even stay close? Or maybe they don't, or maybe they do. It's very real.
Yeah, as Benji says, they were kids and they were joined at the hip. They were like brothers. They were born 2 weeks apart. But the problem with cousins is that you don't have the same parents. You have the same grandparents. And so the problem with cousins is when the grandparents die, you don't really have much of a reason to be together anymore. So in this movie, the grandmother has died and they go to Poland and they really don't have an important need to be together anymore. And Benji really wants it. And David just can't bring himself to continue the relationship as Benji wants it. And Benji can't stand that David has become an adult. It just kills Benji. Why aren't you the David who used to go to sleep on the bench? Why aren't you the David who I had? Why are you now David who has a job and a family and can't be with me at every moment? And so, yeah, it's this kind of lost thing that you can experience with cousins.
It's a love story.
Yeah, exactly. David's in love with Benji because he just wants to be him. David looks at Benji as somebody who's so comfortable with himself. He's so charming. Even Benji's pain is lovable because Benji tells you about his pain. David's pain is boring. David has obsessive compulsive disorder and he takes Prozac. Benji's pain is like earth, he just feels it at all times. And he's scratching himself and he, tried to hurt himself. And so David is in love with Benji and Benji is in love with David, but not in a healthy way. Benji loves the little David that he could take care of, and Benji doesn't like adult David.
And speaking of love, I think I read somewhere that you actually fell in love with Kieran while on set, and I wanted to ask you about it because I can imagine why. I mean, he's so charming also as Benji, but what did you mean by that exactly? Well,
Kieran is a very unusual actor. As you could see from the movie, he's really brilliant and spontaneous and alive and fun, but he doesn't like to he doesn't like stand on a mark like if you ask him to stand here for the scene, he says, well, I think I'm gonna stand here and then I'm gonna walk here, and you're like, I can't, the camera was facing this way, and he's just kind of a pain in the ass. And so it was difficult, but what we did was just like take the camera off of our shot, take the camera off the dolly and just follow him around. And he was so amazing. And as like the guy who wrote the movie, I had this image in my head of what this character is going to be like. And Kieran was so much brighter, so much lighter. I thought the character in my head was kind of just angry at all times. Like, you know, like kind of this, like, just kind of like tough guy who just like occasionally says like, fuck you. And Kieran was like this bright light, like a stand-up comedian. And I was just watching him every day from my character as David, as somebody who's just like in love with him. And I just thought like, my God, I just like, it was like watching something that had been in my head, but 1,000 times better.
But are you that flexible usually with your actors? It's your film. You could have said, you're going to stand right here because it's my film.
The most important thing in this particular movie is that the character of Benji is liked by the audience. That's the number one thing in this movie, is that Benji is well acted. The number two thing is every single thing else, script, everything. The movie lives or dies on if the audience feels connected to Benji, because what Benji is saying and doing is so obnoxious and caustic and aggressive, transgressive, mean-spirited, but if you love him, you can go on the ride with him. So the fact that Kieran was so spontaneous and so alive made me know that the movie can work. If you had an actor in there who you couldn't like, the movie, you would be bored in 2 seconds because, oh, here he is yelling again. But here, because it's Kieran, you're thinking like, what is he gonna say? What is he gonna say? I love this guy. Yeah, he's mean, but somehow I agree with him. And then the other characters in the movie, they all fall in love with him. Like even he yells at the tour guide in the cemetery, and then like 3 scenes later, the tour guide says, "Thank you so much, you saved my life." And Kieran says, "Wait, what did I say? Oh yeah, you should do that." Like no memory. So it's just everybody falls in love with him because there's something magical.
So unfair. I felt sorry for David in this.
Me too. The movie to me is like a high school, and it's like Benji and David are new in high school, and they go there, and Benji immediately starts talking to the cool woman, Marcia, and David's like can't get a word in, and then he yells at the tour guide, he yells at the teacher, like in this high school, and then the teacher, instead of giving him detention, the teacher says, "I am never going to teach again the same way because you're a genius." And it's like, for David's just like the nerd who got stuffed in the locker and is just constantly banging on the locker, goes, "This is my idea. This was all my idea. I paid for this school."
At least he comes back to his family at the end, so...
Right, yeah, because exactly. Yeah, that's what kills Benji.
That's what kills Benji, exactly. But even thinking about how personal this film is in so many ways, and you've been in Poland before, you talked about applying for Polish citizenship. Could you just tell us, why did you want to do it? Why was it something that you wanted to explore like that? Because many people they know there is this story. Mm-hmm. They know where their family comes from, but they kind of leave it at that.
Oh yeah, everything I write is kind of like personal. As they heard, but you weren't here. But like my next movie is about musical theater in New Jersey, because that's like was the thing I liked. So I'm always just looking for anything in my life that happened to me that could be a story, because that's like my job. And so with this, I had written a play in like 2009 about me visiting my cousin in Szczecin, because I have cousins in Szczecin. And I wrote a play, and it was a small play in a small theater, but I always thought it would be amazing to film this as a movie in Poland. I thought it'd be so great to film a movie in Poland, because I came here and I just fell in love with Poland. And I thought it'd be so great to film this as a movie, but the problem with the play was it only took place in a small room, and when I started making scenes outdoors, the play was not good anymore. The movie was not good. So when I saw that ad online, the Holocaust tours with Auschwitz tours with lunch, I realized that's the Polish movie. And I thought, okay, you can make this, as I was saying earlier before the movie started, I was thinking I could make this kind of small American-style independent film, but if you set it against the backdrop of a country that looks like this, and history that's this, it makes the movie so much bigger, and it makes the themes of the movie so much more important.
And what point exactly did you want to work with Polish crews as well? Because, I mean, I can imagine this story just being done with American team. It would be perfectly fine. Nobody would be offended by. Why did you want to do it differently? How was it to work with people like Ewa Puszczyńska? We know her very well here, and you can be honest, they're not here.
I think Eva might be here.
Yeah, right.
And also, our brilliant production designer, Mela Melak, is here, who designed everything you saw in the movie, but it's hard to describe what she did because she would redesign rooms that were already designed by buildings that we were in, and they would love her design so much that they would ask if they can keep her furniture, her design. So there are places in Lublin specifically that are from our movie that were different places the day before. So really amazing work. And that was the whole crew was amazing. I mean, I didn't know really about the Łódź Film School until I started kind of meeting people, and it was very clear that, you know, like the best film school in Europe is here, and so it's constantly producing like the greatest artisans in cinema in Poland. And so, you know, that's why you sit in the credits of many American movies and you're seeing a lot of Polish names, especially with cinematography, because just like the best artisans in the world are coming from here. And so to work with this crew in Poland, not only was it helpful because they know Poland, but it was like the best crew I'll probably ever work with.
It's funny that it's American Film Festival and you make us feel so good about ourselves all of a sudden. Celebration of Poland apparently tonight. I'm happy.
Yeah, of course. Well, I felt so welcomed here too. I feel such gratitude for this country that the country let me in to make my personal movie. You know, I was thinking while we're filming, like, how many American Jews are coming to Poland to make their story, and then the Polish crew has to go back and tell the same, American story. To me, I felt at all times like just so thankful that Poland was letting me do this, that I had a Polish crew that was like working hard to tell like my family's story. I mean, how nice is that we were able to film at a concentration camp that never allows movies because they wanted to support this story of this American family. I mean, it was just the nicest thing in the world.
And I think in the past, so many families, they didn't want to talk about their roots.
Yeah.
They were embarrassed or maybe afraid. They just wanted to kind of forget about it.
Exactly.
Do you think it's changing now?
Yeah, it's definitely changing. So yeah, what you're saying happened in my family. So my grandfather was born in the States, and all of his cousins, aunts, uncles were in that house in Krasnostav, and they all died in really horrible ways, obviously. And my grandfather never told my father about it. So my dad knew nothing about his family. And then I'm the third generation. I'm kind of like an idiot. I don't know anything about history, but I became obsessed with it because I didn't have any guilt around it. My grandfather felt such guilt that his family was being killed while he was in New York trying to make a life for himself. And so he never talked to my father about it. And then me being younger and living like kind of a really nice life, I felt enough removed to learn about it. And so I became obsessed with my family's history and genealogy and where they're from, and went to this house and speaking to people in the town of Krasnostav who helped me uncover more information about my family, and now I have Polish citizenship, and so I became interested in. I think it's because enough time has passed for me to come back here and see it like it's new.
And do you think, because now you've been traveling to so many festivals, to so many different places talking about this film, do you think it helps people to also talk about their history and talk about their families? I can imagine so many people coming up to you afterwards and just saying, I've done a similar thing, or I always wanted to know more.
Yeah, I mean, when I first wrote the script, I gave it to my friend Jim, he's from Haiti, in the Caribbean. And the first thing he said was, oh yeah, I did a trip just like this. And so my hope with the movie is that it's not just for, Americans or Jews or American Jews or whatever. I hope that it's for anybody who's interested in their history. To me, when I started learning about my family's history, it was the most interesting thing I'd ever learned about. Because not only was I learning history, but I was learning history through something that was connected to me. And it made me understand history, and it made me understand the world in a better way. And so my hope with this movie is that, anybody from any country is watching it and thinking, hey, I want to do the same thing. Or, I never asked my parents where they're from. Why did I never ask my parents where their grandparents are from? Why did I never ask where our last name comes from? So I hear this a lot now from people, and it's just great.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know why we don't ask more often. And then it's too late sometimes. So
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
this film is also an encouragement to not to waste time anymore and just really find it out, because it might be something great for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I imagine people will find things that are also not great, but that's part of history.
And when you are creating this whole group of people, because they're so great together, because everybody, you don't know why they do it. Not all of them.
Right.
Some of them you can see, just like Benji. Some of them they're dealing with sadness. Some of them they are just there maybe to experience something entirely different.
Yeah.
But it just becomes such a road movie full of those weird characters.
Yeah.
What were you looking for when you were thinking about other actors as well?
Yeah, so for the other characters, the truth of these tours is that it's mostly retired American suburban Jews who go on these tours because that's who they're designed for. And so it's like these people, like, instead of going to Rome, they'll go on a Holocaust tour. It's like that kind of tourism. It's like responsible tourism, right? But I didn't want to have a group of 10 retired American Jews. So I thought, let me try to put some other people in there. And I based the Rwandan character, Eloge. He's based on my friend Eloge, who's a real person and who that story happened to. He survived the Rwandan genocide. He moved to Canada and became Jewish, like very religious. And so I based a character on him. I based a character of the tour guide on a tour guide I once met, who's this kind of like British academic, very like, you know, smart, Oxford-educated academic, but who doesn't really feel a connection to the place. And then the other characters are essentially, retired American Jews. One of them is recently divorced, and so she's looking for something, looking for some cool thing, looking for something to connect her to her youth, and she sees it in Benji. And so they get along, and who knows what happens to them.
I hope they meet again.
Oh, they will.
They will. It's going to be a sequel. Do you think that with this film you're just trying to make people feel? Because we are afraid of that. I hate to feel things. It's horrifying, and it's terrifying as well. We're just afraid of showing our emotions so often. And you can see it when Benji is being so open. People are just freaking out. They're so uncomfortable. It's actually very universal, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Benji is that he's so inappropriate, but everything he's saying is right. Like, what he's saying all the time is we should be connecting to this in a real way, not in an academic way. We should be connecting to this stuff in a visceral way, in our bodies. And he's correct, but he's doing it in such an obnoxious way that it's odd and makes everybody uncomfortable. But what he's doing is really, in my opinion, it's a good thing. It's like reminding us, hey, you know, maybe we shouldn't be sitting first class in the train. Maybe we should be actually thinking about what people went through. I mean, he says at least acknowledge it, at least think about it for a second. And no one wants to, because they want to eat their food and they want to do this tour. And so, yeah, what I was trying to create with that character is like a kind of mirror, in a way, like in an unpretentious mirror way, you know, like up to the way we think about exploring trauma. And maybe it's actually good to not be so comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's very true, and we should remember that every once in a while. And speaking of being uncomfortable, when you were actually writing that story, was there a part of it that you were struggling with the most? Because, yeah, as we talked, it's personal, and yes, you still want it to be very universal, so you have to kind of leave yourself behind for a bit.
Oh, yeah, I've embarrassed myself far more in other things than this. I've really... what's the word, debased myself on stage for the last 20 years. So this is kind of tame. But
I don't think we agree with that. You just got the Star Award.
That's
there
true.
was nothing embarrassing about your career.
No, I mean, I've purposefully embarrassed myself in plays that I've written that are about, like, the worst version of me. And really disgusting, bad version of me. And so this was like pretty nice to me. You know, I'm like kind of a normal person. But no, it was nothing uncomfortable. I mean, my character talks about having OCD and taking medicine, and that's me. But it's not like I don't feel embarrassed by it. Like, you know, 90% of my country or my city takes the same pill. You know, I'm sure if you forget your pill at work, you can borrow your friend's pill. And so, yeah, there's nothing really like that embarrassing. I mean, the only thing that was really uncomfortable to write in this was just like setting a scene at a concentration camp, because I just wanted to make sure it was respectful. You know, it felt like, goodness, if I'm going to do a scene there, it has to be like the most respectful, quiet kind of scene, because the rest of the movie is funny and quick and like, you know, feels like edgy, and that scene could not feel edgy.
Yeah, it's a very good point. What kind of conversations do you have with people who work there when you're trying to convince them that you want to make a film that's valuable, that you want to be respectful, but at the same time, I think that sometimes people who work there, they get a little bit suspicious because there are so many people making films that are very similar.
Exactly.
How was it for you?
It was a really interesting process. So as you know better than I do, Majdanek is near Lublin in the southeast of the country. It's a camp that's so far east that the Russians got there before the Germans could burn it down. So it's just preserved there. And so a lot of American movies, they want to film their Holocaust scenes in Majdanek, and they want it to be Auschwitz, and they want it to be 1942, and they want 100 guys in Nazi uniforms to be running through and shooting people. And so these camps just basically say, no, of course you cannot film here, because we don't want to turn this sacred ground into a movie set for an action scene. So it took a long time talking to the people at Majdanek to get them to understand that my intention was basically the same as their intention, which is that I'm trying to make people aware of this place. And they're a museum. They're trying to get tourists to understand what this place is, and that's what I'm trying to do too. And so once we felt this connection, then it was amazing. They gave me all sorts of testimonies that they had personally translated from survivors. And if you remember in the scene, there's a scene where the tour guide is reading he's reading out of a book, and it's a translation from a survivor about the experience in Majdanek, and that we took because the guy who runs the camp translated it himself, and it was a special passage for him. So it was a really beautiful relationship by the end.
Was it strange to be there? Because I actually love it in the film that even your tour guide, he finally decides to be quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know it's serious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was really weird to film there. I had been there many times because you go there. I had been there a few times myself, and then you go with the crew to look at the shots, where you can plug your equipment in, to look at where the sun is on a given moment, so you know where to put the camera. And so I'd been there many times, but the actors had been there. That was their first time, and so the actors were having kind of real emotional experiences. And I wasn't, because I'd been there so much. And so it reminded me to see them, like Jennifer Grey, who's in this, in these scenes, she started crying in the middle of the scene. It was really sad. It really affected her. And we took a break and she was okay. But for me as an actor, it reminded me, yes, this is the first time I would be seeing this too, as an actor, as a character. So it was helpful to be with them.
Heavy.
Yeah.
And before we wrap it up, I'm just curious, because I think this conversation is very much like the film in the sense that we laughed and now we're a little bit, sad and more serious. Do you think you're going to do it in the next film as well? Because this combination of comedy and tragedy, this is something that you just have inside of you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, my background is theater. I have been writing plays for 20 years, and they're all like this, but just people haven't liked them as much. And so, people like this movie, and they say it's such an interesting blend of comedy and drama. I said, I've been doing that for 20 years. No one's liked it. So I don't know what the trick is or why this is better. Who knows? I don't know. But I'm going to do that forever. But I imagine this will maybe be the thing that people like the most. And hard to explain why. I got lucky.
You know that we in Poland, we're going to claim that it's all because of us.
Maybe it is. Maybe I have to come back here every 6 months to do something. Yeah. I mean, this truly was a real treat for me to be here. I can't tell you, from the Americans who were here, from the actors to the producers, we were just blown away with what Poland was able to do for our movie. And one of our producers is Emma Stone. She's been on the greatest sets in the world, and she was on set here with us, and she just kept saying, this is just the most incredible crew. We really did get very, very lucky, and it would be an honor to be back here.
It was a treat for us to have you here. Thank you so much, and thank you for staying.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming tonight. So